Troy Anthony Davis spent 20 years on death row, his fate hanging in the balance after he was convicted of gunning down an off-duty police officer, shooting him once through the heart and once in the face, as the officer tried to stop a brutal assault on a homeless man in a Savannah parking lot. But to understand how he ended up facing the ultimate punishment, we need to rewind to the quieter streets where his story first unfolded, raising questions about the paths that lead someone to such a dark turning point. Hit that like button and subscribe to be part of our growing community. Also, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from as we dive into this chilling story. Born on October 9th, 1968, in Savannah, Georgia, Troy Anthony Davis entered the world as the eldest of 5 children in a working-class family. His father, Joseph Davis, was a Korean War veteran, while his mother, Virginia, worked in a hospital to support the household. But stability was short-lived. His parents divorced when Troy was still very young, leaving Virginia to raise the kids mostly on her own in the predominantly black middle-class neighborhood of Cloverdale. Neighbors remembered Troy as a straight-up fellow who looked out for younger kids like a big brother, earning the ironic nickname Ra, or Rough, as hell, though many insisted it didn't match his everyday demeanor. Yet beneath this surface, family challenges simmered. One of his sisters had disabilities that required ongoing care, pulling Troy into responsibilities beyond his years. Education proved a rocky road for him. At Windsor Forest High School, teachers noted him as a poor student who attended classes regularly but struggled with discipline and focus. By his junior year, he dropped out to help drive his disabled sister to rehabilitation appointments, a choice that showed early glimpses of family loyalty amid growing pressures. He later earned his high school equivalency diploma in 1987 from the Richard Arnold Education Center, but those lost years hinted at a drift that might have left deeper marks. And then came the first real red flag. In July 1988, at age 19, Troy pleaded guilty to carrying a concealed weapon, paying a $250 fine as part of a deal that dropped a related charge for possessing a gun with altered serial numbers. Was this a one-off mistake, or the start of a pattern fueled by the frustrations of a fractured home and limited opportunities? As we trace his steps forward, it's hard not to wonder how these early hurdles, divorce, dropout decisions, and that brush with the law, quietly built toward the night that changed everything, forcing us to reflect on the thin line between circumstance and choice. It was a humid summer night in Savannah, Georgia, on August 18, 1989, when the chain of events began unraveling toward tragedy. Troy Davis, then 20 years old, had started the evening at a casual pool party in the Cloverdale neighborhood, surrounded by friends and the buzz of youthful energy. But as he left with his buddy Daryl D.C. Collins, tension erupted. A passing car full of rowdy occupants shouted insults at a group of local teens, sparking a chaotic exchange. Shots rang out from the car, and one bullet struck Michael Cooper, a passenger in that very vehicle, shattering his jaw and sending blood spraying across the scene. The wound was severe but not fatal, leaving Cooper in agony and the neighborhood on edge. A stark reminder of how quickly petty disputes could turn violent in a city grappling with poverty and unrest. Was this just a random flare-up, or the first spark in a night that would claim more lives and shatter families forever? As the clock ticked past midnight into August 19th, Davis and Collins wandered over to a nearby pool hall where they crossed paths with Sylvester "Red" Coles, a local known for his hot temper. The trio ended up in the dimly lit parking lot of a Burger King on Oglethorpe Avenue, in the gritty Yamacraw Village area, a spot often dotted with late-night wanderers and the glow of fast food signs. There, Coles got into a heated argument with Larry Young, a homeless man scavenging for scraps over a can of beer. What started as words escalated brutally. Someone pistol-whipped Young across the head, drawing blood and cries of pain that echoed through the lot. Hearing the commotion, Mark MacPhail, a 27-year-old off-duty police officer moonlighting as a security guard at the restaurant, rushed in to break it up, his sense of duty pulling him into the fray without a moment's hesitation. But in a flash of horror, the assailant turned on him, firing a .38 caliber pistol twice. Once straight through the heart, killing him almost instantly, and once in the face as he fell, a cruel punctuation to the act. MacPhail never even had time to draw his own weapon, collapsing in a pool of blood amid the scattered shell casings and the stunned silence that followed. The victims that night painted a heartbreaking picture of innocence caught in chaos. Michael Cooper, just 19, survived his jaw wound, but carried the physical and emotional scars of a senseless shooting. Larry Young, the 45-year-old homeless veteran down on his luck, endured a vicious beating that left him battered and terrified, his pleas for mercy ignored in the heat of the moment. And then there was Officer MacPhail, a devoted husband, father to a toddler son, an infant daughter, and son of a U.S. Army colonel, who had served his community with honor, only to be gunned down while trying to protect a stranger. His death ripped through Savannah like a shockwave, leaving his young family devastated and the city mourning a hero lost too soon. Hundreds gathered at his funeral days later, a sea of uniforms and tears, as his widow clutched their children close, forever altered by the void. The tragedy wasn't just in the bloodshed, it was in the ripple effects, the shattered dreams of a family, the heightened fear in a neighborhood already on the brink, and the haunting question of how one night's anger could erase so much good. What drives someone to pull that trigger, and at what cost to the souls left behind? In the immediate aftermath, as panic gripped the parking lot and sirens wailed in the distance, Davis didn't stick around to face the chaos he'd been pulled into. Instead, that same evening of August 19th, he hopped into a car with his sister Martina Correa and fled to Atlanta, about 250 miles away, perhaps seeking refuge or time to think amid the growing storm. But the noose was tightening fast. Witnesses at the scene described the shooter as a man in a white shirt, and ballistics experts soon linked the .38 caliber bullets from MacPhail's body and the shell casings at the Burger King to those from the earlier Cloverdale shooting where Cooper was hit, suggesting the same gun tied the incidents together. Sylvester Coles, quick to point fingers, told police he saw Davis with a .38 caliber pistol and that Davis was the one who assaulted Young before turning on MacPhail. More damningly, on August 20th, officers searched Davis's family home and found a pair of his shorts in the dryer, reportedly stained with blood. Though tests later showed it wasn't from the victims, it fueled early suspicions. Yet the streets of Savannah buzzed with danger for Davis. His alleged involvement had disrupted local drug dealers' operations, sparking death threats that made hiding out risky. His family, fearing for his life, negotiated with authorities. On August 23rd, just 4 days after the murder, Davis returned to Savannah and surrendered at the police station, where he was promptly arrested and charged with MacPhail's murder, along with aggravated assault and weapons possession. Handcuffed and led away, he stepped into a legal battle that would span decades, forcing everyone to grapple with the weight of evidence, the pull of doubt, and the irreversible cost of a single, fatal night. But as the cell door closed, one couldn't help but wonder, was this the end of the road, or just the beginning of a fight that would challenge justice itself? Troy Davis stepped into the courtroom in August 1991, clinging to a defense rooted in his claim of innocence. He insisted he had fled the chaotic Burger King parking lot before any shots rang out, leaving the real shooter behind in the shadows. During police questioning and at trial, Davis painted a picture of the night. He admitted being there when Sylvester "Red" Coles argued with homeless man Larry Young, even trying to step in, but swore he bolted as things escalated, unaware of who fired the fatal bullets at Officer Mark MacPhail. Bolstering this, his mother, Virginia Davis, testified that Troy was at home until around 9 p.m. on August 19, 1989, before heading to Atlanta with his sister, implying he couldn't have been deeply entangled in the earlier Cloverdale shooting of Michael Cooper either. It was a straightforward alibi of wrong place, wrong time, with Davis pointing the finger at Coles as the likely culprit, urging the jury to see him as a bystander caught in a web of misidentification. But in a system hungry for closure after a cop's brutal slaying, could such a story hold up against the tide of accusations? Or would it crumble under scrutiny, leaving us to ponder the fragility of truth in a high-stakes courtroom? The prosecution dismantled Davis's defense piece by piece, wielding a barrage of eyewitness accounts and confessions that painted him as the cold-blooded killer. 7 witnesses, including Antoine Williams, Harriet Murray, Dorothy Farrell, and even Coles himself, took the stand to swear they saw Davis, dressed in a distinctive white shirt, pistol whip Young, and then gunned down MacPhail with chilling precision, firing once into his heart and again into his face as he lay dying. Two more, Jeffrey Sapp and Kevin McQueen, a jailhouse informant, claimed Davis had confessed directly to them. Sapp saying Davis bragged about finishing the job soon after the murder, and McQueen recounting similar admissions from behind bars. Ballistics experts linked the .38 caliber bullets from MacPhail's body to shell casings at the Cloverdale scene, tying Davis to both incidents despite no gun ever being found. Davis's own friend, Darrell D.C. Collins, initially implicated him in the Cooper shooting, but wavered on cross-examination, hinting at police pressure, a crack the defense tried to exploit, but it wasn't enough to sway the narrative. With no physical evidence like DNA or fingerprints directly on Davis, the case hinged on these human stories, raising uneasy questions. How reliable are memories forged in fear, and what happens when they override an accused man's word? The trial unfolding from August 19th to August 30th, 1991, in Chatham County Superior Court, was a lopsided battle that gripped Savannah and beyond. Key moments included the prosecution parading 35 witnesses to build an airtight timeline of guilt, while the defense mustered just 6, focusing on inconsistencies like potential witness coercion and Coles's suspicious role. Why, they asked, was he so quick to point at Davis? Tensions flared over jury selection. Prosecutors used peremptory strikes to remove 8 of 10 black prospective jurors, prompting a Batson challenge from the defense alleging racial bias. But the judge ruled the explanations, like jurors' anti-death penalty views or ties to Davis, were race-neutral, resulting in a jury of 7 black and 5 white members. Davis himself testified, calmly denying the shootings and urging mercy, but the weight of those eyewitness IDs proved overwhelming. As deliberations loomed, the courtroom hummed with the stakes. Would the jury see doubt in the gaps or seal a fate based on fraught testimonies that make us question if justice is ever truly blind? After less than 2 hours of deliberation on August 28, 1991, the jury delivered a crushing guilty verdict on all counts: murder, 2 aggravated assaults on Young and Cooper, obstruction of a law enforcement officer, and firearm possession during a felony, sending shockwaves through the room and Davis's family. 2 days later, on August 30th, 1991, following 7 more hours of debate in the penalty phase, they recommended death, citing the murder's brutality against a peace officer in duty and its outrageously vile nature with aggravated battery. The judge imposed the death sentence, locking Davis into Georgia's death row and sparking a decades-long saga of appeals. Troy Davis entered the stark world of Georgia's death row in 1991. Housed at the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification Prison in Jackson, a fortress of concrete cells, constant surveillance, and the heavy silence of men awaiting their end, where the air carried the weight of finality and the echoes of legal battles lost. For 20 long years, he lived in this isolating environment, his days a monotonous rhythm of confinement that tested the human spirit, all while the shadow of his conviction for Officer Mark MacPhail's murder loomed, a reminder of the irreversible harm inflicted on a family and community. Davis was known as a model prisoner, maintaining a calm demeanor with no major disciplinary incidents, earning quiet respect from guards who described him as cooperative and non-confrontational. Interactions that sometimes turned into brief conversations about faith or family, humanizing moments in an otherwise dehumanizing place. Among inmates, he formed bonds through shared stories of injustice, becoming a symbol of resilience for some, though the prison's rigid rules limited deep connections. He spent his time reading the Bible, writing letters to supporters worldwide, and reflecting on his life, claiming he had found spiritual freedom despite the bars. Religion became a cornerstone. His unshakable faith in God sustained him, offering solace amid the despair, as he often shared in correspondence that it kept him spiritually free no matter the outcome. Yet Davis never expressed remorse for the crime, steadfastly maintaining his innocence and refusing to admit guilt, which fueled his relentless appeals, over 29 judges across 7 types of reviews, including denials from the Georgia Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court. with 3 execution dates stayed at the 11th hour, each one chipping away at his family's hope. These years weren't just about survival. They highlighted the crushing toll of uncertainty, forcing reflection on how a system meant to deliver justice could prolong such agony, even as the pain of MacPhail's loss lingered for those he left behind. But as appeals dwindled and clemency was denied, the question hung heavy. Could faith and quiet dignity rewrite a story already etched in tragedy? On September 21, 2011, the day of his execution dawned with a quiet finality at the prison in Jackson, Georgia. Davis awoke early but refused his breakfast tray, choosing instead to begin a fast that mirrored his inner resolve. After a routine strip search around 7:50 a.m., he showered and prepared for what would be his last interactions with the living. A stream of 28 visitors, family members like his devoted sister Martina Correa, close friends and supporters, filed in throughout the morning and afternoon, sharing tearful goodbyes, prayers, and words of encouragement until the last one departed around 6 p.m., leaving him with the ache of separation. He turned down lunch at noon and, later, an early dinner, accepting only a grape drink from the tray, having declared weeks earlier that he would forego a special last meal entirely, fasting in quiet protest. In the hours that followed, Davis prayed around 6:45 p.m., seeking peace amid the tension, then napped from 7 p.m., his original execution time, to about 8 p.m., a brief escape as a last-minute Supreme Court appeal delayed the inevitable. He spent the evening on phone calls with his attorney, anxiously awaiting updates, until the denial came through shortly before 10:28 p.m. Guards then entered, strapping him to the gurney in the execution chamber, as witnesses, including MacPhail's family, looked on from behind glass. A somber gathering marked by grief on all sides. In his final words, Davis addressed the MacPhail family with compassion. "I'm sorry for your loss. I did not personally kill your son, father, and brother. I am innocent." He urged his supporters to continue to fight this fight and look deeper into this case so that you really can finally see the truth, before turning to the execution team. May God have mercy on your souls. May God bless your souls. The lethal injection, a 3-drug protocol beginning with pentobarbital to induce unconsciousness, followed by pancuronium bromide to paralyze, and potassium chloride to stop the heart, commenced around 10:53 p.m., and he was pronounced dead at 11:08 p.m., ending a life in a controversy that left families forever scarred and a nation divided. In the end, Troy Davis's story forces us to confront the flaws in a system where doubt can persist even to the grave. Was justice truly served, or did executing a man amid widespread uncertainty undermine the very principles it claims to uphold? Could the real killer be lurking around somewhere, living a free life, probably with a wife and kids, if Davis' claims of innocence were true? If this tale moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into true crime and justice, and share your thoughts in the comments below.